In this video, we're going to go ahead and get the Eclipse IDE up and running on our machine. So what we need to do is go to eclipse.org and do the download. Again, if you're using a different distribution such as Linux or Macintosh, you may need to go a different route to get the Eclipse downloaded. But what we're doing here is the Windows version for the Eclipse IDE for Java EE developers. And we're going to go ahead and just do the 32-bit because that's what we're using as our default. It will give you a mirror that hopefully is close to you, and it will be a quicker download, and it gives you the option to donate while you're doing your download if you choose to do so, but of course Eclipse is free. You can see that this is a substantial download. There is a little bit more here, so it will take some time. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, of course, and I'll be back when the download has completed. All right, our download has completed, so let's go ahead and go to the folder where that's at for our downloads there. And let's grab that. We're going to move it right to our C drive here, but you could put it wherever you want. Basically, you just need a place to run it from. And so I'm going to put my Eclipse right on my C drive. And I'm going to go ahead and extract this. And again, the extraction is going to take just a little bit of time. So while that's happening, I'll go ahead and pause the video so you don't have to sit here and watch all of this. And you can pause your video and join back when your extraction has completed as well. All right, so the extraction has completed, and now my Eclipse is ready to run. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just start Eclipse from the extracted folder area. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it I don't need to ask for permission every time now. So we'll just run this, and you'll see that it will start up. Now it takes some time to get things started up, and the first thing we have to do is establish our working directory where we're going to do up most of our projects. So if you did the first video where we did the Java SDK installation, you should already have a Java projects folder somewhere. And that's what we'll go ahead and use for this. If not, just create a folder that you can easily find on your computer that you can locate your different projects in and be able to locate them easily. You can also then select this checkbox here to use that as the default and do not ask again. So you don't have to select a workspace every time you start unless you want to. But most of the time you would just go ahead and use your default workspace, so you won't need to change that very often. So once Eclipse starts up here, it's going to load a few things. It takes a little bit, and then we'll have our environment ready to go to start doing our programming. All right, and my Eclipse has loaded. You can see that the Eclipse Workbench welcome page is showing. You can get to the Workbench area by clicking over here. That drives us into the Java Project Explorer. Here's where we're going to write our code and see our files. There's some stuff down here for running our servers and seeing what's going on. We'll see that as we go, some different commands here. So if you're not familiar with Eclipse, we'll learn the things we need to learn as we go. Now, right now, we're set up for Java EE, and I just want to point out, if you do want to do other Java programming, you'll need to open a different perspective, which you could click on this to do that, and you could say, I want to program for Java, for instance, and say, OK. And that would give you then the ability to do Java. Now, why is that important? Because if you want to do regular Java projects that aren't web-based or that aren't the EE perspective, you could go here and just create regular Java packages and classes and things like that. And hopefully that's nothing new to you. The Java EE perspective is where we're going to do our web development. And you'll see that the menu is actually different when we create new projects here. So we're going to go ahead and select File, New. We're going to do a dynamic web project. We're going to build our very first web project, so we're just going to call this First Web, something very simple. We're going to put it in the default location, so you'll see that it has our workspace saved. Our target runtime needs to be set up, so we're going to go ahead and select our Apache Tomcat version 7, which we're using with our version here. We'll go ahead and target that, and then we have to select the installation directory, which again was our computer, program files, x86, Apache Tomcat 7. We'll say OK to that, and we'll leave the default JRE. We'll finish that. So now we can see that we have our dynamic web module is 3.0, our Apache Tomcat is version 7. We don't need to add working sets or EE membership. Let's do next, and we can see here that you can set up some different folders if you wanted to. Right now we don't need to. And essentially, First Web, web content is going to be our content directory. We're going to leave that. We want to generate our web XML deployment descriptor. We don't really need it for this project, but in later projects, we're going to be using that to configure our servlets and different configurations on our web apps. So we'll want that at some point. So let's go ahead and create by clicking Finish. That creates our web project here, and you'll see it come over into the Project Explorer here once we're done. And you can explore this. You can see there are different things about this project, but what's most important to us at this point is this web content folder. And we did do the web XML file, so you can see that this is the configuration file. You could double click it and it will bring up the web configuration file here with some different configurations. Again, the versions 3.0 and different welcome files that you could use to be your default file. If you're familiar with web servers or web administration, usually your project has a default file that will automatically be the startup file when someone just browses to your website. That's all this is. You could set a different page here if you'd like. So let's left click on web content. That's going to be where we're going to store our main files for our project. So we'll right click on that then and say new, and we'll just do a new HTML file to get started here. We're just going to call this first web page.html, and we'll finish that. And here you can see that that stubs out a bunch of stuff for us. You can actually change the title. Let's change it to first web page. And then let's simply put in the body, we'll tab and hit an H1, and we'll just say, this is our first web page. Now, if you followed along with the Apache Tomcat web installation, then you should have that all set up and ready to go. And when we try to run this, we're going to have a little bit of a problem. The problem is the server's already started, and this is going to try to restart the server. I'm going to show you this. Select the server, and we'll basically say we're always going to use this server when we're running this project because we want to use our Tomcat 7. Let's go ahead and hit next just so we can see. Right now, the only thing we have configured is first web. Later, we may have other things starting up in there. And we're going to try to start it, and it should fail because of the fact that the server's already up and running here. If I try to run the page, and it does say it's already running. So remember when we set the service on the installation and said always start on runtime or always start when we start up the service? That actually is causing us a problem now. So let's go ahead and go to our management for our computer. We can view where our Tomcat service is. And this is very important to know where this is anyway, because you're going to need to stop and restart this service when we're doing our web application deployment anyway. So this is a good exercise to get used to this. So the services and applications is for Windows. And so you may have something different if you're starting and stopping your server on an Ubuntu or another Linux distribution. But here with Windows, what we're going to do is find our Apache Tomcat, which should be Tomcat 7 if we didn't change the name. If you change the name, you'll need to find that. And I'm not seeing it, so it may be under Apache. Let's look there. There it is, Apache Tomcat 7. So we're going to go ahead and stop this service. Now also what I'm going to do, even though I had you install it with this as default, just for the purposes of development, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to stop that from happening. So we're going to go to the properties here, and we're going to say the startup type is going to be manual. From now on, we actually want to control when this starts. If you were running a web server, of course you would want this to be automatic, and that's why we installed it that way. We're going to leave it on manual for now because it does cause a conflict with our Eclipse environment. So here's our Eclipse web page now that we have our different information going. So we have our web application server stopped. We have it stopped in our services. It's not running. We changed it to a manual, so now it won't conflict anymore. Now we can try to run our server again. And Windows says, can I do this? And we're going to say, sure, go ahead. Our first web page is up and running. So that shows that we have our Java EE environment set up correctly with Eclipse. We are now able to integrate with our Apache Tomcat web container. We can run the pages directly in our Java EE environment here in Eclipse, and we don't have to do any special configuration or deployment to do that. Now later in the course, we will learn how to deploy a web application and run it as a standalone in the web container. But for right now, we don't need to worry about that.